Now, back to Tony and Casey's Best of Food and Wine on Smooth and Easy. CL 650.
Damn, last Friday night, yeah, we danced on tabletops, and we took too many shots, think we kissed, but I forgot.
Welcome back to the Best of Food and Wine. I'm Tony Gismondi.
I'm Casey Wilson.
And we're moving from Canada back to California, and joining us now on the show. I haven't seen you. I'm trying to think of how long it's been since I've seen you.
Maybe 12 years or so.
12 years.
Wow.
I think it's been a long time.
Was that at Geryser Peak?
It was, yeah. Ondine Chattan, she's the winemaker. Welcome back to Vancouver.
Thank you.
Having fun.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's
Yeah?
such a beautiful city.
Yeah. Having fun out there, too, on the floor?
Oh, my gosh, ever. Yes, a fantastic turnout today. Amazing interest in wine and so much wine knowledge.
Yeah.
It's been impressive.
Great. We love to hear that. How are things in Sonoma?
Things are fantastic in Sonoma. We finally got rain, which was amazing. We've been praying. We've been asking everyone to pray on our behalf, and it finally came. So we're having an El Nino year. Still not enough yet, but we finally have a bit of snowpack in the Sierras.
Yeah.
And then we've actually already hit bud break as well in Sonoma.
Wow.
So yes, things
Bud
are going
break. Oh my
fast.
goodness. You got to get back there. Okay, which wine did you bring? So maybe we'll start with that, because in case we rush out of time. The Walking Tree Cabernet Sauvignon.
That's right. So
Wow. Walking
Tree belongs to what we call the Appellation tier, or Appellation series,
Yep.
which is wines that focus on the specialized appellations of origin within Sonoma County. So we have a couple wines from Russian River, and then, of course, our home, our traditional home, is the Alexander Valley, which is where this wine comes from.
And Alexander Valley, what do we know? We know about the Alexander Valley that it's a great place for Cabernet. Why is that?
Indeed it is. It's this wine actually exemplifies why it's such a great place for Cabernet. So the beauty of it is a very long and skinny appellation. It's about 21 miles in length, but it's only a couple of miles wide at its widest point. And on the eastern side, you get a lot more structure and I think more monolithic tannins, very focused.
Yep.
But on the western side of the valley, which is where this fruit comes from, and where we get a bit more abundant sunshine, we tend to get a bit more of that voluptuous, very heady, almost hedonistic character. So from a winemaking standpoint, the brilliance of this is you have fantastic blending components. And so standing alone, I have one wine called Tectonic that's made from the eastern side, and then Walking Tree from the western side. But other wines, we blend the components from the two different areas, and so you can, within a very small geographic region, get a lot of different layers, a lot of complexity, a lot of depth to the wine.
And what does Walking Tree
The
mean?
name. So Walking Tree, this is a fabulous story. I've been with the winery for 17 years, so a very long time. And this particular vineyard was planted in 1999. But in 2001, we had a rainstorm, back when we used to get a lot of rain. And this tiny oak tree that was perched at the edge of the vineyard lost its footing, slid partway down the hill, and rerooted and stayed there for another year. Then we had another rainstorm the following year. It slid further down the hill, remained upright, and about 6 weeks after that, another storm, and it slid straight out into our driveway. So this little tree slowly walked down. But it never fell down. It never gave up.
Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
As you'll probably know, an oak tree has a very large root system underground compared to what you see above ground. So when this was finally exposed out, it was just enormous. But it sort of gave us this hint of the perseverance. This little tree just didn't give up, and we thought it echoed our feeling as a winery that we were committed and strong and standing tall. So we named the vineyard after it, and that's where it's gone.
Wow, that's very cool.
So this is a Cabernet, but it does have, it's 93% Cabernet and 7% Syrah. And being grown on the western side of the valley, the Cabernet tends to be voluptuous, as I said, but also very, very fruity. And to add a bit of dimension, to give it just a little bit of earthiness, a bit of pepperiness, a bit of complexity, I blend in 7 or 8% of Syrah in any given vintage. That brings it this counterpoint to all that fruit. I love wines that have earthiness and fruit, that have a somewhat savory component.
Yeah, so easy to drink. Like you could drink this all night.
And that's 21 months in French oak, about 25% new oak, and always making sure that we moderate the toast level to match the fruit. So with all that abundant fruit, we don't want to overpower it with wood that's very aggressive. So looking more at medium level toasts and then untoasted heads on those barrels.
So what is the state of Geryser Peak today? What is the wine mix that you're producing in terms of
the range?
Yeah.
So we're still very well known for Sauvignon Blanc and the white. So what I've loved about working there is that the Sauvignon Blanc is all the bright, beautiful, crisp aromatics. It's the purity of fruit. And then we have the other end of the spectrum, big Cabernets. So, and recently we've actually added a little bit of Pinot Noir in between to bridge those two categories. But we do produce Sauvignon Blanc, I should do all whites, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, Pinot Grigio in the whites, and a couple other little Gewürztraminer at the winery, etc. And then in the reds we have Pinot Noir, Merlot, Cabernet, and actually several Cabernets, and still a little bit of special blends like Petit Verdot and Petit Syrah in the tasting room.
And what would you drink? What would you eat? What would be your favorite thing to cook? To drink with this?
So I do tend to prefer more savory type foods. So this is actually a wine that goes really well with anything that has more of an earth-driven character. So if there's some roasted carrots or roasted potatoes or even eggplant, I think that plays up some of that savory character. It does pair well with a lot of meats, something that's not particularly gamey, maybe a little bit sweeter, more roasted characters. I'm very versatile in my pairings. I actually really like Cabernets, especially the style Cab, with some Southeast Asian cuisine. I particularly like the little Korean tacos, something that's a little tangy, a little sweet.
That's a great idea.
That's fun, especially if there's also like a little bit of the shaved onion or lemongrass in there. It's a different dimension.
It's so great to hear you use the word savory. I think it's kind of like the $1 million ingredient in red wines these days for me, because there are so many, quote, sweet style wines out there, it's pretty hard to finish the bottle. I love the drier, earthier, savory styles, particularly in California wines, which is not that easy to find. I don't know, it's changing a bit, but it's always been, they've been fairly rich wines. But this is, I think Sonoma's well suited to that too.
I agree. We are, as a region, most of California is. I think sometimes we underestimate our consumer. It's one of the biggest mistakes that we can make as an industry, is assuming that everyone wants something to be sweet or can't develop the palate to appreciate a little bit more of a savory or dry character.
Right.
So I think you can balance that with having abundant fruit and having texture. That textural element is what people are looking for. That doesn't have to come from sugar. That can come from oak. That can come from a different sort of extraction or maybe slightly longer term aging. But there's a lot that we can do in the cellar without it being artificial manipulation. It can just be a bit more of a being in tune with your wine, really understanding what you're trying to extract and achieve, and not at the end, at the beginning of the process.
You sound very confident. I mean that in a way. We've been talking to wine people about how long does it take to become confident as a winemaker?
I don't think you ever get there.
You don't think so?
I don't know. I think what you get is more, I think maybe the courage of your conviction more than anything else.
Yeah,
just that you understand. There's a great humility in being a winemaker because every year you're thrown a whole new set of challenges.
Sure.
And maybe appreciating that and understanding that and knowing that, at least in my heart, I believe that most consumers appreciate authenticity over perfection. And so something that's reflective of not only where it grew, but the people who made it as well. Not every consumer is looking for just this absolute identical bottle year after year. It's more the spirit of the place and maybe giving them a little bit of a sense of coming along on the adventure with you. So understanding that kind of somehow, I think that's where you get your confidence from.
I talked to a winemaker recently who said it took him 30 years to unlearn everything he learned in school. Is that something that you think about, or has it been an easy progression for you?
Because you had your own winery, you and your husband?
Yes, we did, until we had twins, and then we did not have time.
Oh my goodness. I'm a twin, I understand it.
Are you? Oh, bless you. It's a beautiful bond. But yes, so we did. We went off on our own to make some Zinfandel and a little bit of Syrah as well, and some Mourvedre. But one of the joys for me with being with this brand for so long is that I actually have latitude to work with whatever I want at the winery.
Right.
So that dimension is fulfilled there. As far as unlearning what I learned in school... well,
I should say...
I know what you mean.
Evolving, though.
Evolving.
You're making wine differently today than
very much so. I mean, when you're first in school, everyone tells you to look at the molecular SO2 level, and what you learn with time is that's clinical, and it's not a clinical environment. And so you have to, in defining your own style, you have to decide where you're going to stick with the rules and where you're going to be a bit more adventurous. There are some things that, of course, if you have rot in your vineyard or something, you are going to take certain steps. But if your pH is a bit on the high side, I think you just learn to embrace it and say, well, that's what we can work around this. So maybe we'll be a bit more protective. We'll gas the barrels before we fill them so we're not adding too much oxygen and encouraging growth of bacteria. So there's things like that. But there are no hard and fast rules. And I think even in school they teach you that wine is still as much as it's rooted in science, it's an artistic endeavor. And so there is that latitude and there's room. I think this natural wine movement is really reflective of that. I know it's ill-defined at this point, but just the idea that there are people drinking the orange wines and they're enjoying them.
Yeah.
But technically, they are flawed if you talk to anyone,
Totally.
trained winemaker.
Yeah. Well, I think there's so many different wines now. I love the diversity in wine, in that I think it changes the public slowly. They come to accept that there's many different ways to make a wine, and that it can taste many different ways. And I think that's probably the biggest achievement in some ways.
It is. And if you look around this room, look how many different producers there are. Everyone
It's
here
crazy.
has a great product.
Yeah.
And then it's just the connection,
Yeah.
what they're giving beyond the product itself, what the experience, what the images, what the connection is.
Well, I love the Italians. Of course, everybody says, "Oh, well, there's Barolo and there's Chianti," but you go in those rows and there's Moscato and there's, there are so many different wines out there, Verdicchios and little things that we still, I think, in North America are not pursuing enough of that. We're still sticking to, maybe a dozen varieties when we should be really having some fun, I think. Well, it's coming, but it's taking time.
It's coming. It is difficult, I think, too. I had a guest earlier come up to the table and sort of be a little shy about the white wine, and I said, "Oh, we have Sauvignon Blanc," and she said, "I've never been sure how to pronounce it." And I realized that is still a handicap today, is that they want to try it, but if it's something a bit foreign, then it's easier to just say Chardonnay.
Yeah.
Or easier to say Cabernet. So we have to kind of get over that hurdle of ego. Ego in wine is still a problem.
Yeah. Well, you have a big task ahead of you. You're the number one market in Canada at the moment. You're also one of the number one markets in the world now to sell wine into the U.S. So, you have the weight of the world on your shoulders down there in California.
I think what we have also is the support of the industry. Besides it being a wonderfully supportive global industry, we work regionally, which is so nice. In Sonoma County, all the wineries are so supportive of one another. And you may be familiar with the Sonoma sustainability movement that's going on. That has been one of the best unifying forces in the region, really getting everyone together, that we need to preserve this industry for the long term. So that makes it great.
And I find in my travels that the wine industry are world leaders in sustainability and, moving that clock forward. It's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ondine, so great to catch up with you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for sharing the Geryser Peak 2012 Walking Tree Cabernet Sauvignon, which is available in British Columbia.
It is. This is a spec item right now, but it is available. And
so in private wine stores.
In private wine stores. Though we are getting great feedback tonight, so we hope for something else, wider distribution soon.
Terrific. We'll come and see you the next time we're in Sonoma.
Please do. Thank you both.
Thanks so much. Ondine Chattan is the winemaker at Geryser Peak Winery in Sonoma County in the Alexander Valley. Really a great little place to visit when you're down in California. Arthur, we're out of time, but we're back. We have some special hours for our listeners.
Yeah, we start broadcasting tomorrow afternoon at 2:30.
Okay.
So
and then we'll be back on the air again at 7 o'clock tomorrow night?
Yes, we will.
As well. Great.
The tasting room is not closed yet, so come by. Sign up for our 2-night stay at the Painted Boat Resort Spa and Marina on the Sunshine Coast.
That would be nice. I wouldn't mind 2 nights at the Painted Boat.
I know, I would love it.
I'd settle for 1 night.
And a couple's massage.
Yeah. Okay, that's it for our show tonight, folks. We will be back tomorrow live at 2:30 from the floor of the Vancouver International Wine Festival. You've been listening to CIL 650 AM, Smooth and Easy, the best of food and wine. We wish you a great evening. There's still some time to get out on the floor. Arthur and I are going to go out and taste some Nebbiolo. He needs a small education in Nebbiolo. Thanks for joining us. I'm Anthony Gismondi.
And I'm Casey Wilson, reminding you, compromises are for relationships, not wine.
That's it for today's show. Tune in next Thursday night at 6 for Tony and Casey's Best of Food and Wine on Smooth and Easy, CIL 650.